Okay, so I want to make sure we're live here. All right. I'm trying to get Kick to go live here, chat, and of course, as usual, it refuses to go live. It gives me the stream degraded or degraded every time. I think I finally cashed, yeah, finally cashed that pull. The German briar pipe. Now I'm gonna let that cool before I run a pipe cleaner through it on the German briar. However, Peterson should be a little bit of moisture built up in there. Go. And I just want to get this top ash layer off for relighting this bowl. A little bit easier. Such a unique way of packing this bowl since it's an apple. I gotta always pack it in a kind of cave that. So just now, oh, snap back on. How we all doing, everybody? It is good to see everyone, though. Hope we are all doing well. How's everybody doing over on YouTube, over on Rumble? And yeah, we got the door open. It's gonna help ventilate it a little bit here since earlier I noticed it was getting a little bit smokier than normal in here, and I was like, it probably should keep it ventilated up in here. We got some more of the some of the Autumn Evening by Cornell and Deal. The pipe right now. I was using what I had left in my baggie before I go to the Cigar Lounge. And I figured I'd finish with that. We did, however, go and check out some this BCA by Lane, which is a black Cavendish, primarily just pure black Cavendish. Now, I gotta say, okay, something funny about this one. I tried it out of the corn cob here, and the entire time smoking it, no one's got tongue bite. It smokes perfectly, like evenly throughout the entire batch. Now it is super moist, so before using the bowl that I'm using for my ashtray right now, I actually had to clean it out so I could, put the tobacco in there and let it dry for about 30 minutes or so. And then I fluffed it up a bit, and then we loaded some of this. It smoked fantastic. It literally tasted like I was smoking a chocolate milk drink, which was like very weird, but it was super tasty at the same time. So I definitely enjoyed that one. That is going to go. And I also forgot about the fact that I still had some other lanes, very cherry. So I want to get through this one. This one actually is a good cherry. It's just that it does still kind of give me that cough syrupy cherryness to it, but it is one that I can smoke without giving me tongue bite though. Just have still a good scent to it though. This and the BCA, I'm actually kind of curious how that would make. I wonder if I could make this into like a knockoff of the Colt Blood Red Moon, which is supposed to be like a cherry cordial, which being this is chocolate and this is cherry, you know what I mean? Could make a homemade cherry cordial kind of a smoking experience. And I think that would be a very tasty experience. Now, that's something I would love to try out of the corn cob here. Something I plan to do on that. So, like I said, we just used the German briar because I was letting the Peterson here cool off. So I was letting that guy cool off a bit there because I had actually smoked it a little bit too toasty there. And I used the other apple over here as well. This guy has sat for probably close to 4 days now. So I think this is fully rested enough for us to go ahead and smoke through it. Now, I do have these other pipe cleaners I ended up getting from the Cigar Lounge, which honestly, okay, I'd have only ever seen these type of pipe cleaners, right? Like I've only ever seen bristly ones. Like whether it's the super hardcore bristle ones or these lighter ones like this, I've only ever seen bristle style like pipe cleaners. I had no fucking clue, chat, that there are pipe cleaners that you can get, which are just extra absorbent cotton ones. There's actually more in this one, funny enough, than there is in that one. Those are 40 count. These are 56 count. Both cost about $1 though, but these are really good for absorbing the actual moisture out of the pipe and everything like that. So that way you get all that tobacco oil and any like moisture from your mouth or anything like that that's built up in the stem or anything like that. But this way you're not, destroying the cake that's built up in the bowl. You can actually use it to kind of like just swab it out and everything like that. And it acts kind of like a more bendable piece of paper towel that you can actually go through. Like I've been using it to go through the entire Peterson stem all the way. When I need to take it out to clean it, I'll take this guy out and then run it through all the way and then just pull it through, and it literally helps pull anything in there out. Now I have used one of the bristle ones just once on it just to help make sure that I was pulling any actual solid bits out of there as well. But ideally it's done a great job of not actually building up anything like that in there. So this is going to get confusing. The new black lighter I need to put over there. So I need to find. I've seen some stores online that they're like a Japanese company that makes them, but it's a specific pipe lighter that's angled, so like the tip of it's like this. So you flick it up, you light it, and you can actually just tilt it like this, and it just shoots the flame kind of like down. But it's not a torch, and it's actually a little softer flame than a Bic. But I mean, Bic is about the best you're gonna get when it comes to needing a soft flame, other than using, you know, matches. But I really didn't feel like giving the matches to start off. Well, I actually did it here. Even with the door closed, that is still loud as fuck, but that was way louder than I do apologize. Of course, these people, little tiny dicks, I gotta drive around like that. It's fucking annoying. But we're gonna use a match on this one since I like using the match to start it off a lot of times, especially if the tobacco's a little bit moisture, and I have no patience whatsoever when it comes to smoking in the autumn evening. I'm like, give me my fucking shit. Like I want to get to smoking this as quickly as possible. I have no patience and like, all right, let's let it dry out like I did with the BCA. I literally was smoking this bowl in between having started this one when I did the BCA and this guy. So once I was starting to get to the point of this was a little warm, kind of like I did with the German Briar, I had loaded this guy up with the BCA and just like literally it was fully packed. That bowl went all the way through like that. It was impressive how quickly it smoked through there. But again, I was also impressed with how even it smoked the entire time as well. That was the more impressive note. I was kind of just like, oh wow, that's actually nice to see. However, though, now that this has already been smoked a bit, we can use this and it won't be as moist to try to burn. You want to let the sulfur burn off completely so it doesn't mess up the taste of the tobacco. Okay. That's better. Like it was partially lit with the match, but it was not fully lit. And having to wait till the sulfur burns off, and then doing it, it just always makes it such more of a pain in the ass. Like you can see how much bigger that hit was at the start of it too. Love that autumn evening. Such a fantastic smoke. And I do love the system pipe here by Peterson. I wasn't sure how I was gonna feel about this, especially with having to swab it out all the time with the tobacco oil and moisture that builds up right here in the chamber. But it does do a good job of keeping the smoke sweeter, a little bit cooler, and you don't get tongue bite, but you get a lot more flavor from your smoke out of this guy than even let's say the longer corn cob here, which is a little longer than like my slight bent German briar pipe right here. Which, now that it's cooled off, go ahead. Get this a nice clean, like so. Right. Now most of the moisture that was inside of here is now also swabbed out and absorbed out. Little taps there. Just kind of get some of those extra loose bits there on top of the ridge. And then there we go. Now it's all nice and clean. Perfect and ready to go if we want to go to the cigar lounge, yeah? Which, yeah, we're going to be going to the cigar lounge after the close up the store tonight. So, if I do remember, once we get to the house, I will try to get another stream going if the internet provides, because I know they're doing updates to this entire area right now, and apparently, from when I was getting text messages earlier, the internet was going to be a little wonky. So we'll see what happens. There we go, a little bit better. But so some of the changes we're gonna have to the channel, I do plan to continue doing some of the squash videos. I've been wanting to. I bust into the forest flannel one, so we can kind of use it a bit. That way, we can actually give a good actual review of that one versus just being like, "Oh, it smells fantastic." Okay, well, how does it wash? How good is it? It's a light grit. You know, how's the grit on it? Is it worth picking up, especially for the fall season ones? Outside of like the drunk pumpkin one, which everybody always picks up. Then one I really want to try next is the spiked cider. That one's a zero grit, so I'm curious on how that one's gonna be. I'm gonna do a couple actual YouTube videos, obviously YouTube and Rumble, where we're gonna be talking about pretty much the idea of why I started, using a pipe. Um, One of the big reasons why, especially with being a person who's worked at the vape store now, especially as a manager here, um, one of the biggest things I think I've had a lot of people ask me is like, how is it that I can still use the vape or be working at the vape store if I'm gonna be sitting here using a pipe primarily? Which is a fair question. The best thing I can say with that is that, well, with vaping, I do it more so for the flavor. Like I said, even though we got a tobacco flavor in here, this is tobacco, hazelnut, and vanilla. Um, at the end of the day, this is more so for the flavor, for when I'm bored. Like when I'm playing video games, when I'm bored here at the store, bored, like whatever the case is, I can just sit here and hit this without having to necessarily burn through all of my tobacco that I enjoy. Now, at the same time, though, uh, with that being said, one of the reasons why I've enjoyed using the pipe more than I've enjoyed vaping was that vaping never gave me the sense of like relaxation that I get from when I'm smoking a pipe or even when I'm smoking cigars for that matter, right? Um, and being is that this is a store that helps with trying to find things that help people to quit smoking, right? I think that a lot of people find it kind of counterintuitive, and to that I say you're actually not entirely wrong, but it's that people don't understand that it's not entirely what it's about. It's not about quitting smoking per se. As so much it is about quitting cigarettes. Now, to be exact, pre-rolled in a pack, made by R.J. Reynolds, Philip Morris type of cigarettes that we're talking about, right? And the reason for that is quite simply put that there is there's a problem in the industry when it comes to the fact that vaping, pipe smoking, and cigar smoking, all three kind of can clash against all of each other. Cigar smokers don't inherently always like pipe smokers. Pipe smokers don't inherently like cigar smokers. Vapors don't inherently always like the other two, and the other two definitely don't like pipe or vaping. So it becomes a duality, of trying to, explain to people that you can use all three of them as a way to prevent yourself from smoking cigarettes, or even if you're just doing rollies. You can't get, you know, rollies that taste like hazelnut and vanilla, So even when I'm smoking this, that's got maple, vanilla, citrus, and whiskey. That's a direct along hit. I can still enjoy that, right? That's going direct along blowing shot. It's much more like a hookah, right? Now, the reason why I don't like some people are like, well, then just stick with a hookah then. Okay, do you know how hard it would be to walk around with a fucking hookah at all times? Having a coal going, having the big ass hose and everything. It's not as easy as you might think it is. And I just like nicotine, right? I'm a big fan of the stimulant nicotine. It's not so much that I need it or I'm craving it, it's so much that I just enjoy using it, right? I enjoy the habit of smoking. I find that smoking relaxes me both mentally and physically. And then on top of that, when I'm like praying or meditating, if it feels like it enhances the experience, There are people that go, "Oh, well, why don't you just pray or meditate? That'll be just fine for relaxing and da 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 da." Okay, how about if you actually did it while you were doing that, and then felt the actual enhancement of that actual feeling, and feeling the actual, I would say, more connection to the activity, right? Like there's something inherently more like therapeutic when it comes to pipe smoking than there is when it comes to vaping. Now, vaping for me, the reason why I still do, like I said, is I like to enjoy the flavor, and it helps when I'm boredom, like boredom smoking and stuff. But at the same time, again, I'm using a bigger mod. I'm not trying to explicitly use disposables. Disposables are high in nicotine. That's like literally, you know, in my opinion, like the dab form of the smoking roll. And you don't really necessarily need, disposables, right? 3, 4 good big hits like that, you're gonna feel exactly the same way you would on a disposable, right? You'll get that little buzz kind of going from the nicotine, because the more vapor that's passing over the tongue, the more nicotine you are inherently getting. Just like the more smoke that passes over the tongue, the more nicotine you are getting. You know, yes, there's pipe tobacco that is made as 10 times stronger than a regular cigarette or a regular tobacco and stuff, or even a cigar. They even make cigars like that. For me, it's not about doing it for the nicotine. It's the enjoyment of the actual experience, the ritual of packing oneself a bowl, sparking it, packing it down, sparking it again, and then just relaxing and enjoying watching nature, people watching as they walk by, watching as the cars drive by, while you're talking to customers, while you're helping them find what they might want, and for their personal experience of vaping and stuff. Again, I can still help tailor that experience for somebody, even as a pipe smoker or someone who is a pipe smoker primarily now, but also does vaping and cigar smoking. If I was wondering, this is at the end of the bowl. That's why I'm using my hand to cover it a little bit to create more suction, so I can actually do less, suction with the throat to create more of a vacuum seal. So I can just kind of roast it at the end there and pull it through, and then I can swab it one last time, dump it out, get it ready to go for when I go into the cigar lounge. So I'll most likely go ahead and fill this guy up and smoke it on here while I wait to go to the end of at the end of work, which I'll probably go ahead and use a little of the very cherry. I haven't used much of that recently, so I actually would like to use some of the very cherry out of the corn cob. There is still something that can be relaxing from vaping, but the thing is about for me vaping, the reason why I still think that it doesn't do quite the same thing is that with the tobacco itself, right now, I will argue that when vaping still had tobacco nicotine and not the synthetic nicotine, it can do that. But a lot of it is all synthetic nicotine now, and with the synthetic nicotine, it just doesn't feel the same, you know? Even hitting this tobacco flavored, vape juice, I'm still craving that, not nicotine, but more so that like that itch of like I want to feel relaxed when I billow out that smoke. When I billow out the smoke with this, I feel relaxed. And there's just something about the actual like fact that this is tobacco, premium tobacco that is going through this versus this just being nicotine. That's synthetic. Now, when they were using uh, the nicotine derived tobacco, uh, the tobacco derived nicotine that was in this before, it gave it a natural bitterness to it, a natural flavor. Now, this does say this is just containing nicotine. I don't know if this is using. This may actually very well be using some of the last remaining tobacco nicotine, right? And there might be why I have more of a fan favorite of that, or not fan favorite, but more of a partialness to that one over some of the other vape juices I still have right now that I've been trying to go through, and it even has a bit of a thicker, darker note. And honestly, I would be, remiss to say that this is probably closer to what I'm looking for daily than what I get out of the juices that we're carrying in here for the most part, which is just synthetic nicotine. Uh, let's see here. I'm trying to find one of the bottles that says. I have bottles that say literally this juice contains tobacco-free nicotine. So let me see here. An example of this pod juice. This product contains tobacco-free nicotine, as you can see, right? So again, versus it just saying contains nicotine, which I'm then inclined to believe that the Vapetasia is probably using a more natural, because they are known to use more natural organic ingredients. They are probably still using tobacco nicotine and not avoiding the tax issue. That was why most people started using synthetic nicotine, was to avoid the 40% tax they wanted to increase on any non-cigar or cigarette tobacco, where cigars are only taxed 50 cents a stick. So every stick is only taxed 50 cents. That is the cap on that. Okay. Now, for pipe tobacco, especially let's say if I buy it online, I then have to go in on my taxes, do the taxes for it, and then pay 40% for whatever I paid for my tobacco or the amount I bought that year. I then have to pay 40% on all of that. That is ridiculous for pipe tobacco, okay? So that got lumped in with vape juice nicotine. That's why, because that's how they're taxing it. It's the nicotine in it by the quantity and stuff. So when you buy a shitload of pipe tobacco, like at a brick and mortar store, that tax is already applied, but then they still want you to do the tax at the end of the year. If you buy it online, you are specifically then held to do that tax because that isn't been taxed at all online. But then you'll find it for a lot cheaper. But this is why in certain states they're like, oh yeah, our cap on pipe tobacco is like 15 cents. Why the hell can't it be that way around here? 40% is fucking astronomically asinine. Like, I'm just saying. I do like the cherry note in this. This does have a good cherry note. So we'll load this up in the corn cob here, chat. So, but I do plan to do, like I said, do like a why I started pipe smoking video where I really want to go more in depth about the ins and outs of why I started, what makes it so alluring to me. There's something on my fucking nose. My fucking sinuses have been draining. So blowing my nose apparently had some shit left on my nose, and my nose hair was like fucking stuck to my face. So yeah, that was fun and attractive, right? All right, so clean this off a bit. Like a big thing that I do want to also cover in that video too is like the other portion of it is like, and I've talked about it on stream here plenty of times about, the fact that I used to be a cigarette smoker. I used vaping to quit smoking. Uh, and that was a big, a big part of that. But it was that I didn't hate smoking itself as I hated cigarette smoking from, you know, packed cigarettes, right? So like even when my mother would be smoking around in the house and stuff like that, and I would smell it, I would smell that like chemically smell, and I was talking about this on stream about a couple weeks ago, and I actually had somebody locally talk to me about this, right? Because they had a similar experience. And they, saw the comment on stream, and they were like, "Yeah, actually, I've had something similar." That is why they end up going to, rolling tobacco and stuff like that. And I was like, I never really thought about switching over to rolling tobacco because at that time I was using what was called Bolly Shag. But as I've explained about it on stream, but also in a light bit, I was also using a light form of Bolly Shag, so it wasn't like a regular strength cigarette at that regard. And I was effectively smoking way fucking more than I was when I was just smoking regular cigarettes, and I didn't like that. I wasn't trying to smoke more like that. Uh, and so that became its own issue in itself. So I was like, dude, I really just want to just quit. I want to find a way to quit and enjoy just not having to deal with all that crap anymore. And of course, 1 second here, chat. Alrighty, sorry about that. Of course, somebody was looking for something again that we just do not have in stock. So, sadly enough, I'm hoping that we'll see something come in, or whatever the case is here soon. Or I have no idea what the hell has been going on with that. So we'll see. But one of the uh, one of the big things that I have, you know, been, trying to relate to a lot of people is that the changes that are, you know, coming to the stream in the channel and stuff like that, they are done more so for the sense of I wanted it to have everything be conducive with all the stuff that we've been doing here. Like again, I wanted to have the news kind of stuff still go on. We're gonna do that kind of coverage, the drama coverage. I call it drama coverage, but just the crap that's been going on Twitch, and everything like that in the streaming world. Obviously the news stuff with the politics. Also, we'll still do that. Still do some games. We'll still do the good to have you in here, Fox. Good to have you in here, brother. We'll still do the Squatch content, and then that'll just kind of be the main process. Be pipe, Squatch, video games, news, and then Twitch drama and stuff like that. Especially until Twitch probably closes. It's looking really bad for Twitch with a lot of the lawsuits that are going to be going out here soon. I honestly really don't see Twitch handling everything as well as they probably should. I haven't heard anything about whether or not did Clancy go to the uh, what should have it, the congressional hearing that he was supposed to go to. Um, I don't know if he ended up going to that or not. So I would love to know if he actually ended up going and what came of that. If or unless he canceled again as he did before, claiming that he didn't need to go, which I found that absolutely hilarious. That he was like, "Oh, what? They've just lumped me in because the social media things and blah blah blah. It's just a guilty by association." And it was like, no, no, you were very much, asked to go before the Congress to give a reason for this crap that's going on with the radicalization of people through social media, as Twitch has been a big proponent in helping with that kind of crap. And of course, he's all like, ah, what, me? What? No, I don't need to do that. And you're like, okay. So, I mean, it really was kind of a telling thing. I mean, Clancy's always been a weirdo as it is, but like, dude, the dude really does not help his case in any fucking way, truly. He just makes himself look weirder and weirder day by day. And it's like, these allegations that he's got against him, they're just not looking good. They're not looking good. Like, and that, and another big thing too, right? About really wanting to promote more about the type of content that I'm doing is that what I find dumb is that like when it's on YouTube and other places, a lot of times you have to do the whole thing of like, oh, I'm not promoting the use of this, or I'm not telling people that they should use these things, and it's like again, like I think that the fact that you even have to declare these types of things is not even like legitimately funny. It's at this point annoying, right? Look, if somebody is watching my content and they are of age, 21 or older, right? I am not telling you that you should do these things. I'm explaining why I do these things and why I enjoy these things and why I think that the criticism about these things comes from usually like, bullshit reasons, or comes from, people that literally have no grounds to talk shit when they're guzzling down their fucking painkillers and antidepressants with a bottle of vodka every night. It's like, oh, really? I'm doing something bad by smoking or vaping? Okay, go fuck yourself. It's like quite literally go fuck yourself. If you're guzzling down fucking your antidepressants, or fucking painkillers or both with booze of any fucking kind, you are the biggest fucking hypocrite out there. So it's like shut the fuck up. Like get into the back of the line. Nobody wants to hear your fucking opinion because it doesn't matter anyways. Like that's just kind of how it goes. And I think that the biggest issue I have with all of that is that people will, especially when it comes like to vaping, right? And we talked about this on a couple of streams before, right? That vaping inherently got its own bad rap because of the douchebaggery, if you will, that came with it, right? The people that inherently were vapors weren't usually the people that were being very, great in society. A lot of them tended to be, really asinine. Um, a lot of them would tend to do or say shit that they, I think nowadays would probably regret having said it as an adult. But when they were younger, we're like, oh, this is cool, edgy, or funny, and oh yeah, because we're vapors, this is, the lifestyle you gotta live, and, the way you gotta look and act. And it's like, dude, you're making it look bad just by the attitude that you're trying to, present, and this, mentality that you're trying to present. And in reality, too, it's just like, you know, there were people that did it because they truly wanted to quit smoking, and then there was people who truly did it because they thought, "Oh man, I look cool when I do this thing." And it was like, bro, if you ever started smoking or vaping because you thought you looked cool because of it, I don't think I need to say anything further. Okay, I think my disdain for that should say enough. You know, again, it's something I've talked about on stream before. Um, I even talked about this with other friends too. That when we talked about when when did you start smoking type deal, right? It was like that conversation we were all having with each other about a week or two ago uh, at like at a Bible study I was at, and it was that when did you start smoking? Why did you start smoking? Uh, what was the cause for it, right? And only a few of the guys there were like myself that were underage smokers when they started, and the general consensus was that you were depressed, filled with anxiety, uh, and everything else like that, as any teenager usually is, right? When you're going through puberty and everything, and so the majority of us all started smoking because of those reasons: anxiety, depression, stuff, so forth, so on. A lot of it was for therapeutic reasons, right? And I had friends that were cutters, and when they were depressed, that was what they were doing. And I was like, I'm not fucking doing that. One, I don't want my scars to be public. I had something really against that. And some people can say that's kind of rude or maybe shitty to think that way. But legitimately, I was just like, look, if I'm gonna have fucking scars because am depressed, my scars will be internal. And so I decided that smoking would be the best way to hide those things. And so, that was, one of the big reasons why I started smoking, and then a couple of my friends that also uh, ended up being people that were originally, they started cutting, um, but they didn't like doing it. They didn't like the attention that it gave them. Would then start following suit with me, joining me in the smokers area when we were all underage and stuff like that. Because why? Well, because we didn't want to fucking do the other shit that everybody else was doing, and I was, in my way, in my thought, I was saving these people the potential chance from actually doing something stupid one day. Actually cutting in a way that it can't just be, like, oh yeah, you did that. Like, oh no, they fucking did it, and they can't come back. And I didn't want that to happen. So I looked at it as being a lesser of two evils, right? Sure, it's not healthy for you to do, and I will never ever be like, oh, smoking and vaping is healthy for your body. Like, no. But look, if you're trying to quit smoking cigarettes, which is arguably like the bigger enemy and the worst of all of it, then pipe smoking or vaping is going to be way better. Even cigar smoking is way better for you than cigarette smoking, right? Cigar smoking, again, because it's not inhaled, it is all like in your mouth. You're rolling the smoke around your mouth, and blowing it out. People then go, oh, what about mouth cancer and everything like that? Well, okay, look, at the end of the day, keep your fucking hygiene up, brush your fucking teeth, use mouthwash, all these things like that, floss. And then on top of that, I would argue that, with chewing tobacco and stuff like that, like, skull and all this other shit like that, again, is sprayed and got tons of other chemicals all over it versus the shit that we're smoking in a pipe. Okay. Uh, and you're not letting the smoke sit there and just soak into your gums like you do with chewing tobacco and other things like that. So I would arguably say that those are still way better to deal with than fucking smoking. But at the end of the day, I still think those are way worse than, again, pipe smoking, cigars, vaping, or anything like that, or even hand rolled cigarettes that are not sprayed with a bunch of shit. You can get unbleached papers. You can get organic tobacco that has nothing sprayed. There is all kinds of ways of doing that without having to go the route that so many people die from smoking wise. Okay. the vapes that way wasn't so low. And then we are about six, right? Vaping stream. It is a vaping stream. Vaping and smoking stream. So got our corn cob loaded up with some very cherry lane limited pipe tobacco right there. I got my apple over here that I have not used all day yet. I have been deciding what I wanted. I think I'm gonna load some lane 1Q in this possibly before I walk to the cigar lounge tonight. I think when I get back tonight, I'm gonna try to do a stream, just another smoking, vibing, hanging out stream with everybody. Maybe we'll do some video gaming, play some Cyberpunk or something like that. I kind of been wanting to play some Cyberpunk on stream for a little bit here now, so yeah, I wanted to fill up the tank. I usually like to keep it above Zeus's nose on my Zeus tank, but I was going a little low on that one there. But you see how long you can take a big ass hit from one of these for, and it just, again, I'm not feeling it in the head like I do when I take my first big hit from a pipe, you know. But I do feel that like, the taste is very delicious. You know, that I do get like, and that's something that I really do like still because it does still help with the sweet tooth in a lot of ways. The craving for certain desserts and stuff like that, candies, all those kind of things. I do look at it as being a way to help me with curbing that part of the habit the most because it's like it's so easy to just start eating candies and sweets and sugar when you're not smoking or anything like that. There's just something that happens when you don't smoke and all of a sudden that craving fucking comes back and you're like, oh shit, sugar man, bah. You're just eating sugar right and left. How you been doing there, Fox? Good to have you in here, brother. It's good to have you in here. How's the emote stuff like, or not emote, but the VTuber stuff coming along? Mhm. Okay, I know that cherry tastes really good out of the corn cob. It is more natural. Mm, that is good. That is delicious. It's got such a good aroma too in the air. Oh man, it smells so good, so good afterwards. You know, that's another thing too. Is like, you know, the the idea of pipe smoking gets a bad rap, I think, just like cigars, just because of cigarette smoking. I'm glad to hear that. You got anything planned for your streams there, bud? Mm. Such a good strawberry, or strawberry, such a good cherry. Oh, that would be a good one. A strawberry fucking flavor into to a pipe smoke. That would be really nice. I'm excited. My one buddy over at the Cigar Lounge, he's going to be trying to get some Lane RLP 6 in, which is a chocolate vanilla caramel note. And holy shit, does that sound fantastic! I will say, one part of that will be the lighting behind me. Two, when I first get that, first light off, it always looks that nice, right? But they usually are a little bit wispier unless I can get it nicely packed and tight. So I do appreciate that there. Again, and that's 100% true. And that's kind of like what I was getting at too with the whole like even though being someone who's vaped for so long, something I lost when I was a vape smoker that I wanted back was that feeling, that head feeling. And it's like the best way I could describe that, right? Mainly because I've used cannabis and I am a cannabis user, right? Is it feels like a head high. It feels like you feel something in the cerebral and you just feel relaxed. There's just this thing that comes over the mind. You're just like, and you just feel a little bit happier. You know, you feel a little bit more mellow. You know, I have a harder time getting anxious or angry or upset about really anything if I'm smoking, pipe tobacco, especially if it's good quality type, pipe tobacco, especially like something like the Cornell and Deal Autumn Evening here. I love smoking that and just feeling nice and relaxed, and I feel just so much more at peace with everything, you know? I was trying to go out on me there. Where did I put there's my tamper. And there's just something about enjoying, tobacco and, having a nice long day of work, going outside, enjoying the nature and stuff like that. Living in the Pacific Northwest too, right? I live in a very, very beautiful, like naturally beautifully area. Whoops. And so like when you live in somewhere like that, you want to be able to enjoy it at its fullest. And sometimes just sitting out in nature and having a smoke, just enjoying everything there is around you, is also amazing. Nope. And especially more so if I use my Peterson here. So I can sometimes get tongue bite if I use my German Briar, but the and even sometimes off of this guy, my corn cob, because it is just a stream of smoke going right there. But the one that works the best, right, is this bad boy. So this guy has the what's called the P-lip design. My hand is a little shaky there because I got a little nicked up when I was hitting my vape there. Woof, little too much nicotine. Again, when I'm smoking the pipe, I don't have that issue. But this is got what's called a P-lip. So it's just a hole designed to make sure that the smoke is actually going up and over the roof of the mouth before it hits the tongue. So it actually cools it off a bit more. Plus, the way this is designed, you can actually take this off even when it's hot, swab out the moisture that builds up in the bottom there, and then continue smoking and everything like that. So one of the nice things about that. But honestly, even with this guy, I wasn't getting any tongue bite with the Lane very cherry. Now, I will say I have let that kind of chill there for a little bit in that bag for probably a few weeks now. Actually forgot about it. It was sitting in the cupboard here at the shop. I had completely forgotten about my very cherry, and I had just picked up this the Lane BCA, which is Black Cavendish, just pure Black Cavendish. And I was, oh, that tastes really like a good chocolate milk. And I was like, oh man, I wish I had some cherry. That would be great because then I could make my own like cherry cordial or like the Colt Blood Red Moon. And then I remembered I had this, and I was like, you know what? I haven't smoked some of the cherry just by itself in a long time. Like, let's give it a shot. And legitimately, it has tasted fantastic, and I haven't had any tongue bite. Which, if as far as I remember, now granted, I was using my Dr. Gabro pipe that I had originally. Now that is an older pipe. It is one that has also been used with a fucking torch, sadly enough, on that. So that I think might have affected that in a way and made the pipe actually get so hot that it creates its own tongue bite without it being the tobacco necessarily itself. Because it was very bitey. It was very bitey, no matter what I loaded in that, except for the Cornell and Deal at that time. And that was just before I had bought some of my newer pipes of these Briar ones I have, which I have a billiard Briar that I have one of my best friends. He's borrowing it right now just to try out pipe smoking stuff, which I find it funny. He was like, he likes it to a degree, but he said he didn't like the fact that he didn't like the tobacco taste in his mouth all day. Now, there is a way to get rid of that, obviously, with some gum or any type of strong soda like a cola. That'll help kind of cut through that bite of the taste there in your mouth. Kind of as a palate cleanser. Some coffee helps as a palate cleanser as well. Bam. Repack that down a little bit. Grab the lighter. So, I would agree with that normally, but I've learned how to actually handle that in the teeth, and I don't mind it so much. What I don't like is if the pipe does get a little too warm and the smoke that's coming up from it is right behind the teeth and hits the gums like that. It's a little uncomfortable at times. Uh, but it does relax comfortably in the mouth. But I do tend, just like my corn cob, I don't tend to really put it in the mouth as much. And I say that now because when I was doing that, I've chewed through damn near my whole stem already on my corn cob, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna probably buy a vulcanite stem for this guy. I'm thinking about because they had another option, which is a slight bent one that they had there, and I think I might stick with this one. But I wanted to see if I can keep one that goes about this small here, but flares out just a little bit more at the end to give it a little bit more a cooling feature at that end too. So oh yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And I did notice that with the as much as I do love it, the Cold Blood Red Moon, and it bit in a way that I was just like, oh, that hurt. I was like, that hurt actually, and it was out of this one too, out of the corn cob. Which also, by the way, I do appreciate the compliment on the Peterson. Which I do know the one nice thing about that too is that if I can get other bent stems that'll fit perfectly for that system in there, I have seen some aftermarket ones I was looking online. They do have some regular fishtail ones. As I don't know if you would consider the corncob one more so a fishtail one because it's very petite, but my German Breyer is definitely the fishtail style one, and I do actually love the lightness of this one. It fits perfectly in the mouth. This is my favorite walking pipe because I'll load this up and I'll just go walking around town, and then I'll usually have like a Ziploc baggie of tobacco usually in my pocket, so I can just kind of bust it out wherever I go. And usually I still have the jars. Like I got a big jar of Lane 1Q because I like to cellar my tobacco as much as I can while even I still going through it quite fast. Because I don't smoke slow, sadly enough. I probably should smoke way slower than I do, but it's funny even with that thick of a cloud, no tongue bite. Like I'm actually really impressed. No tongue bite from that one. I've always been jokingly called aqua lungs for that because I have what they call it, diver's lungs. My lungs are a little bit bigger than average, so I've always taken advantage of that as being a smoker. So it's allowed for me to always enjoy smoke in a very much deeper way. And again, one of the things too that it helps with being a pipe smoker is also enjoying cigars, because the same thing actually applies to cigars in a lot of ways. And a lot of people will smoke their cigars super quick, super hot, and you're like, did you really taste the flavor of the leaf at all? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, I tasted a little bit. And it's like, okay, no, no, no. You shouldn't taste it a little bit. You should taste it a lot. You know, like I prefer ones that usually have like the nutty, earthy finishes for the filler, but a sweeter wrap and stuff like that because I love that. Hate these loud trucks. Hmm. Need to pack it down a little bit more. I also will be picking up some more of the Haunted Bookshop. That is a good English blend too. So, and it's funny too, is I see a lot of hate for the 1Q because of how moist it can be, or how bulk that it is. It's like it's a very good vanilla and honey flavored tobacco. I mean, you don't really taste the honey because it's more so there in the scent, and it's going to be there as the casing. But the topper of the vanilla, you taste that, and it's just a hint of it, just enough that it lightens the sweetness of the tobacco's bitterness, that it pulls it all together with that Virginia and Cavendish too. Yeah, there we go. I think it's getting towards the end of this bowl here. That is true. I have noticed that. That's usually what I like to do is I'll take like my rolling trays and I'll just throw the pipe tobacco on that. And then usually I'll take a drier one, I'll load that in a different pipe, smoke that while I'm doing something for about 30, 40 minutes. Then I'll come back, fluff up the tobacco and stuff like that, air it up and stuff like that. I kind of do like the Jeremy Reeves thing, even though I'm definitely not a master blender here or anything like that. But I'll do the Jeremy Reeves technique where you fluff it up and then you do the little natural gravity fall for it, kind of do the tap, everything like that, and then you start doing the light packs as you get up, closer. And you also kind of build it with a kindling. You do a lot of the bigger pieces at the bottom. You do the more grittier, more coarse stuff in the middle, and then you have the finer stuff at the top. So that way it actually is like a kindling that actually burns it all the way through evenly. So that way as you're packing it down, you don't have to relight as much. And I gotta say too, because this has got a coating on this corn cob, right? It's kind of like a meerschaum coating. Um, and this, I say meerschaum coating, not really a good example, but it reminds me of a meerschaum pipe, is what I should say, but like that, the outside of a meerschaum pipe. So kind of like that stone texture, how it might get a little bit hotter sometimes. This does not. Well, I shouldn't say hotter sometimes, because meerschaum does a great job of retaining the heat and not making it hot at all. But this normally would get really, really hot. This entire bowl, I don't feel any tongue bite on my tongue. And as hot as I've watched this get, I did not feel that heated up. So I think I've done a good job of building up a decent layer of cake inside of this one. So I need to do that replication now with all the rest of them, because some of them I was doing a little bit of a dunce move here, taking the pipe cleaner and scraping the caking that I just built out of there. Because I was doing the Dr. Alan Harrelson method. Yeah, not exactly something you should always do. So 1Q is classic. It is definitely quintessential pipe aroma that pleases most people, even non-smokers, and that delivers a reliably smooth, if not super flavorful smoke. No, 100%. And honestly, it's funny too. You say that too for the non-smokers. That my little sister, obviously not a smoker, she's only 12 years old, absolutely loves the smell of that in the autumn evening. My mother, who is mainly a cigarette smoker, um, she'll vape and stuff like that sometimes as well. But when she smelled this, she was like, "Which one is that?" I was like, "Oh, that's the 1Q. It's just vanilla and honey." And she's like, "That smells the best." I was like, "Yeah, it's a good classic." Be right back, everybody.
I've honestly almost never have to relight when I smoke 1Q as long as I've dried it out the day before. Lots of beginners start out with a 1Q and end up getting frustrated by relighting a tongue bite. If they'd only dry it out, pack loosely enough, and pace themselves, that and I can see that. I definitely know a lot of people that had told me that when they started out with 1Q, they either got the tongue bite or they didn't like having. Now I've actually got a lot of people that say they don't like relighting in general, which is a weird thing. I find that part of pipe smoking, part of the thing that you're gonna do, maybe inherently sometimes the most, is going to be relighting a bowl. I find myself relighting a bowl sometimes, two, three times, especially if I'm having a good conversation with somebody. It's just gonna happen. You're not gonna be able to keep a bowl lit infinitely if you're having a good conversation. Sometimes if you're not just sitting there with it in your mouth, if you got it in your hand and you're just talking and talking, you forget, oh shit, I haven't hit my pipe in like a good 4 or 5 minutes while talking. It's probably out. Yep, okay, go ahead and relight it. But there are people like, oh, why is it out? It's like, because you were talking for 4 or 5 minutes. And also for those that are new, by the way, yes, whenever we have customers that come in, I do throw the BRB screen up and go take care of the customers. I normally would have music in the background. I do apologize. I forgot to have music on in the background. I also do the BRB screen just for the sake of the fact that we do have a lot of female customers that come in here, and they don't always tend to like the idea of the camera being on and stuff like that. They didn't even notice it at first until afterwards, and they then made the comment like, "Oh, that's cool." I'm like, "I'm glad you were a lot less, aggressive about that than some people can be." Because there are people that get very angry about that idea that you have a camera. It's like, you realize that you're on a camera anyways, right? Like, there's a camera ideally in almost every store watching you, and seeing what you're doing. So it's like the same damn thing, but the only difference is I'm actually talking to the people watching, you know. There's just a little bit left in there. Here, we'll finish up this bowl here. It's already 6:52. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and finish up this as best I can, real quick, chat. We're gonna go ahead and wrap up things here, though. I wanted to just do a small one before we went to the Scar Lounge tonight. After I wanted to do one here from here earlier, and I kept spacing it because I was busy with doing a little cleaning here and there, dealing with customers. I had another guy come in, and we shot the shit for probably close to 20 minutes. Good old customer that I've had here for years. And one that I truly do appreciate when he comes in. So it was quite nice to have him stop on through today. That is not finally cashed. Uh, so it was good. It was good to see him, catch up with him. Hadn't seen him in about 4 or 5 weeks or so. Mainly just because of the fact, we just haven't had in what he's needed. So unfortunately, he's had to go elsewhere for it. But I always appreciate he still stops in. But it was just like one of those things too, where we shot the shit. It was a good 20 minutes of it, and it was nice the catch up. Definitely nice to catch up. The flavor and aroma are mild, subtle for beginners, but 1Q is too moist. It's gonna frustrate beginners. Yes, and I agree. And I do think too. Like, one of the big things I find that it's weird that I've seen a lot of like beginners that have been trying a lot of 1Q out, like in like certain like Reddit boards. 'Cause I've been looking on like the pipe smokers Reddit thing there on the subreddit, and it's weird because I've seen a lot of people that, like, when they're trying it, they'll take advice from somebody and then they completely do either the exact opposite or they do whatever the hell they wanted, and then they blame the person who gave them advice. There was a dude who said, hey, like, there was a guy who told one dude, hey, try it out for about, no, I think it's like 4 or 5 hours, like, his pouch. Guy was like, okay, totally. He dried it out for 2 days, then lit it, and then complained that it was so dry that he couldn't really smoke it, and it was really hot, and it gave him tongue. But he didn't tell you to dry it out for 2 days. He did tell you to only dry it out for 6 hours. It's like, just saying, it's like people do whatever they want, I swear. So, exactly, yeah, right. If you're chatting, your pipe's gonna go out. It happens, and it's not to be upset about. I see people get upset about it, and I'm like, why? I see it even in like pipe or YouTube comments on vape smokers, or not vape smokers, or pipe smokers. on anybody who's doing a pipe video, like the vaping piper. I've seen it on his. The Vogue show. I've seen it on his a few times. Uh, Maybe a couple on Mutton Chop Piper as well, and a few others. But it's like, oh my gosh, you've had to relight your pipe 3 or 4 times. You're not a real pipe smoker. It's like, bro, what is this pipe smoking gatekeeping shit? What is this? Like, if somebody's enjoying their pipe the way they are enjoying their pipe, let them enjoy their pipe. Okay? As long as they're not technically really doing it wrong, then why are you telling them how to do anything? Like, and there's really only a couple of ways you could do it wrong. If you don't got good draw, if you are constantly getting tongue bite no matter what you're using, whether it be tobacco or pipe. And then really the biggest third one I would say is cleaning, right? Most people don't actively clean the pipes as well as they should or as often as they should, but they also maybe over clean it as well too. So then they ruin the caking, and then they're exposing the briar on it, or they don't let their meerschaum properly absorb the tobacco oils and everything like that properly, and then they get really upset with that. And again, pipe smoking is meant to be something that is relaxing. You're meant to slow things down, enjoy life, enjoy the moment, and enjoy the experience. And too many people, I feel like, are like, no, I need to smoke, 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 smoke. It's like, bro, if you want to smoke like that, go smoke a cigarette. Go roll yourself a smoke. Do that way it's at least a little bit cleaner. Or, go get yourself a vape, and then just do that. And just relax. You know, this is meant for you to be like, I'm gonna take the time, I'm gonna enjoy everything, I'm gonna load up the pipe, and then I'm gonna have a nice little smoke while we're doing doing whatever the case is, whether it be work or you're reading a book. Like again, uh, I have been trying to get through this. I say trying to because I've had uh, little time to actually read at times when I want to, and then when I do need to read, I end up forgetting about it, and then get sidetracked doing something else. But I've gotten about a quarter of the way through, almost a quarter of the way through Dune, and this has been a fun book to read while you're smoking a pipe. You read a couple pages as you're smoking a pipe, and you're contemplating the words and the story. You're building the story in your head. You're seeing the scenes and everything like that, and it's a fun and enjoyable way to enjoy a piece of literature like this. So yeah, and that's a good point too. It's and it's pipe, and I feel like pipe smoking is something that you can enjoy learning. You're supposed to enjoy the learning curve, and I feel like a lot of people get upset if they don't just do it right the first time. Like I was watching this one girl, I can't remember her last name on her channel, but it's a Connie something. I think it's a Connie Ramos or something like that. She's a YouTuber as well. Real funny girl though. And it was just kind of funny to watch her do the stuff she was doing. She had a raw pipe, by the way, which I thought that was fantastic. That raw actually makes a tobacco pipe like that. And my first thought was, I gotta go buy one. Like I gotta go check one of these out. And it looks a lot like one of these. So I thought that was kind of cool, but a little bit more blockier and stuff like that. But she was really enjoying it so much. But she was like, I just don't want to make mistakes. And it's like, honey, it is okay to make mistakes. Like we all are gonna make mistakes while we're smoking. Like I've seen the most well-versed pipe smoker be like, oh, I did that wrong. And they just laugh at it because it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I would have done that wrong. I've been doing this for 12 years or 10 years, 30, whatever the case is, right? I'm like, I can't believe I forgot that thing. It happens. Nobody's going to be perfect all the time. Yeah, exactly. And I've seen that happen with a lot of like the subreddit. I've seen that happen a lot with the, uh, just even in local community wise too. I've had a few people be like that, and I'm one of those people with a mouth that I will openly just be like, hey, you're kind of being an asshole. And I've said it to a few people. They're like, oh, how dare you? And I'm like, fucking how dare you? Like, what is this posh bullshit? Like I was at the I was at a barbecue with some friends, and a guy kind of just happens to be like, "Hey, man, you're hitting your pipe a little wrong." And I was like,
I mean, how am I hitting my pipe wrong? And he tells me because I like to do the three puff, so there'll be two puffs and then I draw the third, or I'll do three puffs and I'll draw the fourth. It just depends on if I feel like the smoke is thick enough before I tamp it down. Sometimes then I need to tamp it down. Then I get that thicker smoke and I'm happier with that, right? So he then tells me that like I'm not supposed to do that. I was like, are we really telling me how to fucking smoke a pipe here, man? Like, I was like, well, how do you smoke your pipe? He goes, well, hey, elegantly draw on it. And I was like, and what? Okay, first of all, my guy, elegantly, who uses that word like that? I was like, you don't say it like that. Also, that sounds a little weird. I was like, thirdly, I was like, can we just admit that that is the dumbest thing you could say to somebody? And then, of course, everybody else around him is laughing at him at this point because he's like, yeah, he looks like a complete ass. He's made a fool of himself, and yet he was alive with the whole party and the show of everything because he's the only guy that was smoking a pipe originally. And then here comes a couple of me and friends that are smoking a pipe. We're enjoying ourselves, and then he's kind of like, oh, how dare other people smoke a pipe in this area? I was the only pipe smoker, so I want to be the distinguished gentleman. It's like, bro, you are not. Best way to discourage a noob is to freak him out and make him think that there's a right way to smoke pipes. Yes, 100%. And I think that's one of those things that even when I was explaining it to a buddy of mine who just kind of naturally wanted to try it out just because he smelled the autumn evening, and I was like, really, there's no real wrong way of doing it. I'm like, you just gotta find what works best for you. Whether it be loading the pipe the way you like to, whether it be smoking the pipe the way you want to, because I've seen people where they only take a hit when they have to relight. They'll clear off the ash, relight, after they pack it down, they'll relight it, take a couple hits, let it go out, do the same thing, and they only do that. Whatever. That's their way they want to smoke it. That's the way they want to smoke it. I'm not going to tell somebody that they're doing something wrong. They're enjoying the pipe tobacco. They're enjoying themselves. I don't care. That's all I wish for them to do is just to enjoy themselves. Just like, again, smoking a cigar. Yes, technically, the slower you smoke it, that's the right way to do it. But am I going to really tell somebody who's like ripping through their cigar, hey, man, you should smoke your cigar slower? If they ask me for advice, sure. But otherwise, no. Like, at the end of the day, they spent the money on that shit. If I'm going to smoke a cigar fast, that's why I buy factory smokes. That way I don't feel so bad. If I smoke like my Deadwood like I did earlier, or my Charter Oak at the other one, man, boom. I'm always having to do that. So yeah, you get it's like there's always that the vibe of that, and he did have a kind of an arrogance attitude to him. He lost it kind of shortly afterwards. He never apologized. Which I kind of wish he would have just came up and said, "Hey guys, sorry for acting the way I did." Things like that would have been nice. But no, he instead decided to slightly double down, and then just be like, "Oh, the pipe tobacco that you're using is subpar." And once he said that, my one buddy had at that point just kind of let him have it. It was just like, look, man, he was like, I don't know what you're smoking on that makes you think that you're smoking on God's greatest gift. He's like, but quite literally, he's like, I can afford this only, and if this is all I can afford, then it's all I can afford. He's like, at the end of the day, I don't need you telling me that I'm poor or that I have poor taste or whatever the case is just because I can't afford the tobacco you're smoking. And so then I have to ask him, of course, so what tobacco are you smoking? He wouldn't say anything. So finally he pops off with, oh, it's Peterson. And I'm like, okay, so you're still smoking like a good quality tobacco. I'm like, you're ripping on my buddy here for smoking literally, wasn't Corellia, what is it, what is that, CAO, cow, or however you pronounce it, right? He was smoking on some of that. He likes it. He enjoys it. What's the matter? Dude had a fucking hissy fit over it. Was just like, I just don't understand how somebody could just enjoy something like that. And I was like, I mean, he seems to be pretty happy smoking it. And I think he had like some like dark chocolate or something like that by them. But it was just like one of those things where it's just like, dude, like, are we really gonna sit here and gatekeep on smoking when smoking should not be a habit or a hobby that you're gatekeeping? Like, if people are gonna smoke, they're gonna smoke, but let them smoke and enjoy themselves the way they want to. Like, I just think it's so weird that there is a bit of gatekeeping ish in the community like that.
But it is past 7 o'clock here, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up here. I will try to be live, like I said, later on tonight once I get to the house. I'm gonna go hang out for a couple hours over at the cigar lounge, though, smoke some cigars, smoke some pipes, and then just vibe out and hang out with the guys there. If you guys haven't checked it out, it's over in Moscow, Idaho. If you guys are over in this area, go check out the cigar lounge. It is absolutely a blast over there. Always love the guys hanging out with them. This is their quad lighter that I got actually. I got from them there, and absolutely love this torch. Great for toasting a cigar and everything like that. So absolutely love that. So definitely recommend the Refuge over in Moscow, Idaho. If you guys haven't checked it out, definitely go check them out. Amazing guys over there. Marcus and Cody are absolutely just fantastic to talk to. Also, a wealth of knowledge on cigars, pipes, tobacco in general. So I always love just shooting the shit with them and just talking about tobacco and just kind of getting that ability to talk to people who are also a fan of the leaf, are lovers of the leaf as well. And I gotta say, it's been fun too doing the content like this because we've got to meet so many more people recently doing these streams like this that are also pipe smokers or cigar smokers, and I like seeing this because I feel like it's created a new part of the community that has definitely also felt like they don't have to hide anymore. That was also already part of the community already, which was cigar smokers and pipe smokers. They're like, wait a minute, like, we can all hang out, vibe in here, and like, people are all doing the same thing. Like, there's not this like weird, weird vibe. They're like, oh, because I vape or whatever the case is, I don't let them come in or talk or be part of the community. It's like, no. Like, I don't give a shit what you're doing. Like, at the end of the day, again, I just like nicotine, and at the end of the day, I'm going to enjoy nicotine however I want. And I think that that's completely fine for everybody else. Again, if you smoke cigarettes, I'm not trying to hit, shit on the thing that you like the most, but go do rollies at least. That's all I asked. Go do rollies. At least you're doing better tobacco that way too. Yeah, no, you know what? And that's how I've been going, teaching myself. And it's been a fun time. It's been a fun time. Yeah, 100%. I agree with that there, Trey. I agree with that. It's a good way to put that. And it's again, I agree with that. That's how I've been able to learn myself here recently, and I've had nothing but fun. I've had nothing but fun while doing it too. It's been an enjoyable, fun experience, and like you said, the relaxing too, and especially when you're doing it in private too. There is that sense of just being like, I have like my own little kingdom in my mind right now. You're in your own little throne room, if you will, and that pipe smoke is literally just carrying you around in there. And it's just I don't know. There's something beautiful about pipe smoking, and I enjoy the shit out of it. So, and I'm glad I got into it too as well because it has been absolutely a blast. And again, it's been something that's actually helped kind of replace a big portion of this too for me. So, absolutely enjoy that. But I will see you guys all back here a little bit later on, fam. I love you all. Appreciate you all. It was a pleasure to meet all of the new ones that have dropped in here today. And I will see you all in the